History's most terrifying Native American tribes you never knew about. Get ready to uncover the terrifying truth behind some of the fiercest Native American tribes in history. Known for their brutal tactics and unmatched ferocity, these tribes struck fear into anyone who crossed their path. The Comanches. The Comanche tribe, known as the Lords of the Plains, struck fear not only into the hearts of European settlers but also among other native tribes. Their name, derived from the Ute word Comanche, meaning enemy or someone who always wants to fight, reflected their formidable reputation. The Comanches' origins trace back to the Shoshone tribe, with anthropological findings showing shared linguistic and cultural similarities. Their language belongs to the Uto-Aztecan family, a group of languages spoken across much of the western United States. The introduction of horses by European settlers in the 16th century had a transformative impact on the Comanche tribe. Through trade networks, including exchanges with the Pueblo people and other plains tribes, the Comanches acquired horses and quickly mastered their use. This new mode of transportation allowed the Comanches to expand their territory far beyond their Shoshone homeland, particularly into the rich buffalo plains of eastern Colorado and western Kansas. With horses, the Comanches not only revolutionized hunting and trading, but also redefined warfare, becoming expert horsemen. Horses symbolized both status and power within Comanche society and their remarkable equester. The Comanches' method of capturing and training wild horses was both skillful and distinctive. William Blackmore, an Englishman who spent 8 months with the tribe, described the Comanches as graceful riders, noting, "On foot, they are slow and awkward, but on horseback, graceful. They are the most expert and daring riders in the world." In battle, the Comanches were a terrifying force. They would charge their enemies with deafening war cries, using their horses to shield their bodies while discharging arrows or bullets with deadly precision. Each Comanche warrior had a favorite war horse which they rode exclusively into battle, emphasizing the bond between horse and rider. Comanche women, equally fearless, participated in horseback activities such as lassoing animals and hunting buffalo. The Comanches' ruthless reputation grew as they became known for their relentless and brutal warfare. Spanish soldiers who encountered the tribe after Spain acquired Louisiana praised their unparalleled horsemanship and fearlessness in battle. The Comanches were not easily deterred by the idea of peace. Bold and tenacious, they fiercely resisted European settlers and made it nearly impossible for the French, Spanish, and Americans to seize their land. Their reputation was so fearsome that they single-handedly halted Spanish expansion for nearly 50 years. U.S. General James Wilkinson called the Comanches the most formidable indigenous group on the continent. Initially seen as mere horse thieves, the Comanches earned their fearsome reputation through brutal raids. These raids were so intense that northern Spanish and Mexican settlers dubbed them the Comanche Moon. When European settlers crossed into Comanche territories, they faced swift retaliation. The Comanches would attack, steal horses, and later sell them to the Spanish, the Mexican Empire, or Americans. Despite being a relatively small tribe of around 40,000 people, each Comanche owned 2 to 3 horses, which were vital to their culture. In Comanche society, young warriors had to prove their status through frequent raids, showcasing their prowess in killing and stealing. This was the primary way to gain prestige, wealth, and respect within their families and bands. The fearsome legacy of their raids cemented the Comanches' reputation as one of the most powerful and relentless forces on the Great Plains. The Comanches' torture methods were notorious and varied in their gruesome nature. This level of cruelty, which shocked even the Spanish and Mexican authorities, cemented the Comanches' reputation as a tribe not only feared for their warfare prowess, but also for their brutal treatment of captives. T.R. Fehrenbach in Comanches, The Destruction of a People, recounts a particularly tragic incident in 1836 involving the Parker family, early settlers at Fort Parker. Around 100 Comanche warriors on horseback deceived the settlers by waving a white flag, which led Benjamin Parker to step outside the fort to parley. He was quickly surrounded and killed. The Comanches attacked the fort, killing 2 settlers, mutilating and scalping others. Granny Parker was impaled on the ground with a lance, and her granddaughter Cynthia Ann Parker was captured. She eventually assimilated into Comanche life, marrying Chief Peta Nocona. Years later, after her recapture, she struggled to adapt to white society and died in 1870. Which Comanche warrior tactic do you find the most intimidating? Let me know your thoughts below. The Iroquois Confederacy. The Iroquois Confederacy, also called the Haudenosaunee or Six Nations, stands as one of the most remarkable examples of indigenous governance and social structure in North America. This powerful alliance originally consisted of 5 tribes: the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca. Each tribe brought its own strengths and resources to the Confederacy, creating a diverse and united front. The Mohawk, known as the Keepers of the Eastern Door, were strategically positioned near early European settlements, often playing a pivotal role in trade and diplomacy. The Oneida, rooted in the Great Lakes region, contributed their agricultural expertise and strong community bonds. The Onondaga, located in central New York, served as the political and spiritual heart of the Confederacy, hosting the council meetings where major decisions were made. To the west, the Cayuga and Seneca provided vital support, with the Seneca earning the title Keepers of the Western Door for their role in defending the Confederacy's farthest borders. The term Iroquois, however, did not originate from the Haudenosaunee themselves. It was a name given to them by their rivals, the Algonquin, who referred to them as Iroque, meaning rattlesnake. This name was inspired by the Iroquois' ability to strike with precision and speed. Known for their stealth and tactical brilliance, the Haudenosaunee were often able to neutralize their enemies before they even knew what hit them, cementing their fearsome reputation. The Iroquois Confederacy, known for its bold and expansionist nature, established itself as a dominant force in North America through relentless raids and military campaigns. Their expansion often came at the expense of neighboring tribes, with the Huron, Erie, and Susquehannock suffering devastating losses. From an early age, Iroquois youth were rigorously trained in combat, mastering weapons such as bows, spears, and clubs. By their teenage years, they joined raids, honing their skills and proving their mettle in battle, a necessary path to gain respect and, potentially, the title of war chief. A grim facet of Iroquois warfare was their treatment of captives. Prisoners were often forced to endure the gauntlet, a brutal trial where they ran between rows of warriors wielding thorny branches and sticks. This ordeal highlighted the intense warrior culture and the harsh realities of intertribal conflict. The Beaver Wars of the 17th century marked one of the Confederacy's most significant periods of aggression. Seeking to dominate the fur trade and expand their territory, the Iroquois launched fierce campaigns, subjugating the Susquehannocks in Pennsylvania and nearly obliterating the Huron near the Great Lakes. By the early 18th century, the Iroquois controlled a vast region, stretching from Michigan to Tennessee, solidifying their influence. What truly distinguished the Iroquois was their unparalleled ability to maintain unity among their member nations. This cohesion proved vital during the French and Indian War, when most Iroquois nations aligned with the British, leveraging their collective strength. As the proverb goes, a threefold cord is not easily broken, and the unity of the Iroquois Confederacy was a testament to this enduring truth. The Apache. The Apache people, part of the southern Athabascan language family, were known for their resilience and exceptional survival skills in the harsh southwestern landscapes. Their territory spanned from the Arkansas River to northern Mexico, and from central Texas to central Arizona. Surrounded by powerful empires like the Spanish, Comanche, Ute, and later the Americans, the Apache thrived by mastering mobile guerrilla warfare and adapting to their challenging environment. Armed with traditional bows and modern rifles, the Apache warriors were known for their remarkable ability to fire multiple arrows in a single shot, while riding horseback with precision. Their strength lay in their expertise in stealth and surprise, allowing them to carry out sudden, unexpected strikes that caught their enemies off guard. Apache warriors excelled in hit-and-run tactics, using their deep knowledge of the rugged terrain to retreat quickly after an assault, leaving their adversaries disoriented and demoralized. One of the Apache's greatest military assets was their ability to raid. Capable of covering vast distances quickly, both on foot and horseback, they would strike fast and hard before disappearing into the landscape. Their integration of Spanish horses and steel weapons into their tactics displayed their adaptability and innovation. They quickly mastered the use of lances and knives, making them even more formidable in battle. The Apache were, without a doubt, masters of mobility, surprise, and strategic warfare. General George Crook's description of the Apaches as the tigers of the human race captures the fierce and relentless nature of these warriors. Renowned for their physical endurance and agility, the Apaches could outrun cavalry on foot, showcasing an unmatched level of stamina and speed. In battle, their exceptional archery skills were legendary. They could release 7 arrows in the time it took for the first one to reach its target, demonstrating lightning-fast reflexes and precision. When it came to warfare and captives, the Apaches were known for their brutal methods. They showed no remorse in torturing enemies, with captives often subjected to horrific fates, skinned alive or burned at the stake. The children of their foes were not spared, meeting a tragic end, with their heads crushed against walls. Among the Apaches, cruelty in battle was not only accepted but also revered, and those who could devise new, inventive ways to inflict suffering were held in high esteem. This brutal reputation contributed to their fearsome presence on the battlefield. Which historical tribe do you think was the most brutal in history? Drop your opinion below. When Native Americans were slaughtered in the name of civilization. By the close of the Indian Wars in the late 19th century, the Native American population had tragically dwindled to fewer than 238,000 individuals, down from an estimated 5 million or more who had inhabited North America before European contact. This drastic decline was the result of centuries of violent conflict, forced removal from ancestral lands, disease, and other hardships imposed by colonization and the expansion of the United States. The decimation of indigenous populations, both in numbers and in culture, marked one of the darkest chapters in American history. However, despite these profound losses, Native American communities exhibited remarkable resilience and endurance, ensuring the survival of their cultures and traditions well into the 21st century. The Gnadenhutten Massacre. The Gnadenhutten Massacre, which took place in 1782, serves as a grim reminder of the deepening animosity and violence between Native Americans and European settlers during this period. A group of Pennsylvania militiamen killed 96 Christianized Delaware Indians, who had already been blamed for previous attacks on white settlements. Under the command of Captain David Williamson, the Delawares were ordered to enter the cooper shop 2 at a time, where they were brutally beaten to death with wooden mallets and hatchets. This massacre was particularly tragic because the Delaware had been one of the first Native American tribes to capture a white settler and to sign a U.S. Indian treaty 4 years earlier. This treaty set the stage for future agreements, 374 in total, over the next century. Many of these treaties, which were often framed with promises of peace and friendship, resulted in the cession of tribal lands to the expanding United States. These agreements not only shifted the balance of power but also led to the establishment of trade relations between Native Americans and the United States, effectively marginalizing British influence by introducing American goods, particularly firearms, to the tribes. Battle of Tippecanoe. The Battle of Tippecanoe, which took place in 1811, was a pivotal moment in the struggle between Native American resistance and the expanding United States. Tecumseh, a charismatic Shawnee war leader, and his brother, the Prophet, had united various tribes to resist encroachment by American settlers. They believed that tribal unity was key to defending their lands and way of life. However, Indiana Territorial Governor William Henry Harrison, who would later become president, decided to take aggressive action. In an effort to suppress this growing native resistance, he attacked and burned Prophetstown, the spiritual and political center of Tecumseh's Confederacy, while Tecumseh himself was away rallying support from the Choctaw tribe. The destruction of Prophetstown enraged Tecumseh, who returned to lead a renewed attack. He sought British support in his efforts to fight against American forces. Despite their efforts, Tecumseh and his Confederacy were defeated at the Battle of the Thames in 1813, where Tecumseh was killed. His death marked a turning point in native resistance in the region, leading to a temporary period of safety for American settlers on the Ohio frontier. However, the conflict was far from over, as tensions would continue to simmer between native tribes and the United States in the years to come. The Creek War. The War of 1812 bled into the Embodied. Creek War, also called the Red Stick War from 1813 to 1814, highlighting the violent conflicts in the South. This war was a result of an intertribal dispute within the Creek Nation, with the Red Stick faction opposing the more traditional Creek leaders who sought peace with the U.S. The conflict also involved foreign powers, with the British and Spanish backing some factions of the Creek to undermine American expansion in the region. After early Creek victories, General Andrew Jackson led 2,500 men, primarily Tennessee militia, to retaliate. In November 1814, Jackson attacked and slaughtered 186 Creek warriors at the Battle of Tallushatchee, describing the violence as shooting like dogs. The attack was a response to the earlier Creek-led massacre at Fort Mims. The brutality of Jackson's forces was witnessed by Embodied Creek women, who, in an attempt to spare their children from the massacre, killed them themselves. In a chilling moment, Jackson intervened when a mother was about to kill her child, seizing the baby and later taking it back to his wife Rachel to raise as their own. The Red Stick War ended with a decisive victory for Jackson at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, where the Creek were forced to cede more than 21 million acres of land to the United States, dramatically reducing their territory. The war cemented Jackson's reputation as a fierce and capable military leader, though it also furthered the tragedy and displacement of native peoples across the American South. Forced removal. The Indian Removal Act of 1830, strongly advocated by President Andrew Jackson, remains one of the most controversial and tragic chapters in U.S. history. Despite fierce opposition from many lawmakers who condemned the policy as immoral, the bill passed in Congress by narrow margins, 29-17 in the Senate, and an even smaller vote in the House. Jackson's rationale for pushing the bill was rooted in his belief that the Eastern tribes, over 30 in total, stood in the way of the nation's westward expansion, and the settlers' rights to cultivate land and develop agriculture, particularly cotton. In his 1833 annual address to Congress, Jackson further expressed his disdain for native peoples, stating they lacked the intelligence, industry, and moral qualities necessary for progress, and predicted they would eventually disappear as a result of their inability to adapt. His views were shaped by the notion of manifest destiny, the belief that it was America's divine right and duty to expand across the continent, regardless of the fate of indigenous peoples. From 1830 to 1840, the U.S. government forcibly removed over 60,000 Native Americans, including the Choctaw, Creek, Cherokee, and others, through a brutal process that involved relocation to new lands west of the Mississippi River. This forced migration became known as the Trail of Tears. Along the journey, thousands of Native Americans suffered from disease, exposure, and exhaustion, leading to the deaths of many. As settlers moved further west, the designated Indian Territory continually shrank, further diminishing the tribe's land and autonomy. The forced removal marked a devastating and enduring impact on Native American communities. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. Mankato Executions. The Mankato executions, a tragic and brutal event, occurred as a result of growing tensions between the Dakota Sioux and the U.S. government. After the Dakota people, confined to reservations in Minnesota, were not provided with the food and supplies promised through treaties, they were driven to desperation. The situation escalated into the Little Crow War of 1862, when Dakota raided nearby white farms for food. The raid resulted in the deaths of several settlers, and the conflict continued with additional raids, culminating in the killing of 490 settlers, primarily women and children. In response, President Abraham Lincoln sent soldiers to the region, and after the Dakota were defeated, mass trials were held. More than 300 Dakota men were sentenced to death. Lincoln commuted most of the sentences, but on December 26, 1862, at Mankato, Minnesota, 38 Dakota men were hanged in what remains the largest mass execution in U.S. history. The public spectacle drew over 4,000 spectators, many of whom brought picnic baskets to watch. After the execution, the bodies were buried in a shallow grave, but most were later exhumed by physicians who used them for medical research. This horrific event marked one of the darkest moments in U.S. history, a symbol of the deep mistreatment and broken promises that Native Americans faced throughout their encounters with the federal government. The killings fueled more military aggression against Native tribes, culminating in General George Armstrong Custer's infamous defeat at the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876. Custer, who had boasted that there are not enough Indians in the world to defeat the 7th Cavalry, was overwhelmed by Lakota, Arapaho, and Northern Cheyenne warriors. His death became a rallying cry for military revenge and further persecution of Native American tribes. The Sand Creek Massacre. The Sand Creek Massacre, one of the most infamous atrocities in American history, took place on November 29, 1864 in southeastern Colorado. Led by John Chivington, a former Methodist minister turned military officer, the attack targeted a peaceful village of Cheyenne and Arapaho people. Chivington's force of 700 men, mostly volunteers from the 1st and 3rd Colorado regiments, was fueled by alcohol and an intense hatred for Native Americans. Chivington himself, notorious for his contempt towards Indians, declared, "Damn any man who sympathizes with Indians! I have come to kill Indians, and believe it is right and honorable to use any means under God's heavens to kill Indians." The Cheyenne village, led by Chief Black Kettle, had displayed American flags to indicate their peaceful intent. Black Kettle had even tied a white flag beneath the American flag to further signal peace. Despite these clear signs of surrender, Chivington ordered the massacre. The soldiers attacked without provocation, killing at least 160 men, women, and children, and mutilating their bodies. The majority of the victims were women and children, making this a particularly brutal assault on a defenseless group. This massacre was a defining moment in the violent and tragic history of the American frontier, illustrating the disregard for the lives and sovereignty of Native peoples, even when they sought peace. It also sparked widespread outrage among Native American tribes and contributed to the growing tensions between Native Americans and the U.S. military, further fueling the violent conflicts that would continue for years. Custer's campaigns. Custer's campaigns were marked by a drive for personal fame and military glory, with little regard for the lives of Native Americans. George Armstrong Custer, a celebrated war hero from the Civil War, led his 7th Cavalry with bravado and reckless ambition. His pursuit of fame often involved attacking vulnerable groups of Native Americans, especially those who were not prepared for battle. In one of the most notorious actions, Custer led a brutal attack on the Cheyenne and Arapaho near the Washita River in Indian Territory on November 29, 1868. Under orders from General Philip Sheridan, Custer's forces ambushed the sleeping Indians, slaughtering 103 warriors, women, and children. Custer claimed this as a great victory, despite the overwhelming advantage of attacking a peaceful, unprepared group. He boasted about the ease of the assault, remarking, "The Indians were asleep," and describing the confusion caused by the sudden attack on women and children. His callous attitude toward the massacre was evident in his communications, framing the ambush as a successful military operation. Custer's boldness continued, and his ego-driven actions culminated in the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876. Confident in his victory, Custer attacked the largest assembly of Native American warriors on the Great Plains. However, he underestimated the strength and resolve of the Lakota, Arapaho, and Northern Cheyenne tribes, who, led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, made a heroic last stand. The result was a decisive defeat for Custer and the 7th Cavalry, with Custer himself being killed along with many of his men. His death, while a moment of military humiliation, was used to fuel a narrative of revenge and restoring peace to the frontier, further escalating the violence and tragedy in Native American resistance to U.S. expansion. Wounded Knee. The Wounded Knee Massacre, which took place on December 29, 1890, marked one of the most tragic chapters in the history of the U.S. government's treatment of Native Americans. In the late 1880s, the ghost dance movement spread across numerous tribes, offering hope to Native Americans who had suffered under decades of oppression, forced assimilation, and displacement. The movement's teachings, which focused on the idea that Native American peoples could reclaim their power and revitalize their cultures by rejecting the ways of the white man, struck fear into the hearts of white settlers and U.S. officials. In December 1890, following the death of the respected Sioux leader Sitting Bull, tensions rose as ghost dance practitioners continued to gather. The U.S. government, fearing an uprising, sent the 7th Cavalry to confront the Lakota at Wounded Knee Creek. On that fateful day, the soldiers surrounded a group of disarmed Lakota men, women, and children who were performing the ghost dance. The cavalry then opened fire, killing between 150 and 200 Lakota, including many women and children. In a horrific irony, some of the soldiers involved in the massacre were later awarded the Medal of Honor by President Benjamin Harrison. The massacre was a devastating blow to the Lakota and other Native American peoples, symbolizing the violent end to their resistance and further entrenching the loss of their lands and culture. Wounded Knee remains a potent symbol of the brutality faced by Native Americans during the period of westward expansion. Resilience. The closing of the frontier in 1893, as proclaimed by historian Frederick Jackson Turner, marked a significant moment in American history. Turner's thesis emphasized the idea of American exceptionalism, arguing that the expansion of the frontier had shaped the nation's democratic values and character. His theory suggested that the American frontier, which had been a defining force in the nation's growth, was no longer a driving factor in the country's development. Around the same time, James Earl Fraser's sculpture, End of the Trail, unveiled at the Panama Pacific International Exposition in 1915, captured the prevailing sentiment of the era, symbolizing the defeat and disappearance of Native American cultures. The image of a weary, defeated warrior on horseback encapsulated the broader belief that Native Americans were a vanishing race, doomed by the relentless encroachment of settlers in the U.S. government. However, despite the grim outlook presented by figures like Turner and Fraser, the American Indian population proved remarkably resilient. Far from vanishing, Native Americans adapted, survived, and thrived into the 21st century. Today, the Native American population exceeds 5 million, a testament to their enduring spirit, cultural survival, and ongoing contributions to the fabric of American society. This resilience highlights the strength and perseverance of indigenous peoples in the face of centuries of hardship, displacement, and cultural suppression. A device that helps to correct the application of makeup, invented by Max Factor, Wright, in 1930. Two Lumberjacks and a Big Tree, Pacific Northwest, 1915. Bandages retrieved from the kit of a British dog, 1915. The first Cape Canaveral launch photograph, 1950. Fremont Street, downtown Las Vegas, 1952. Photo by Edward N. Edstrom. The 9 kings of Europe gather for the first and only time for a photograph at the funeral of King Edward VII in London. May 20th, 1910. Judy Sullivan, NASA's first female spacecraft operations engineer, monitors astronauts' biomedical sensors during the Apollo 11 mission, 1969. Notice of mail suspension with central powers posted in the main post office in Cincinnati, Ohio, 9 days after the official war declaration by the U.S., April 15, 1917. The first telephoto lens in the world, 1900. Children boxing in Kent, England. Gypsy Camp, 1951. Promotional photo of the French chef with Julia Child, 1964. Annie Oakley. Alexander Gardner's photograph of Alan Pinkerton, Abraham Lincoln, and Major General John A. McClernand at Antietam, 1862. Marilyn Monroe, 1957. Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov unveils his sketch of American astronaut Thomas Stafford during the first joint American-Soviet mission, July 17, 1975. Annie Oakley using a mirror for a trick shot. President John F. Kennedy and Vice President Lyndon Johnson during a tour of Cape Canaveral Missile Test Annex, 11 September 1962. Santa Claus with Christmas toys on a sled drawn by white turkeys, circa 1909. Arnold Schwarzenegger during the filming of Red Heat, 1988. Street Band Manhattan, New York City, 1948. Rare photo of British Army veteran Norval Sinclair Marley, white Jamaican officer who was the father of Jamaican reggae singer Bob Marley, 1930s. Jasper National Park, Canada, 1929. The upper chamber of the Supreme Soviet in its final session, voting the USSR out of existence, 26 December 1991. Judy Garland test shot for Wizard of Oz, 1939. This shockingly high-res photo was taken over 100 years ago and shows a crew of men unloading a banana boat in New York, 1920s. Elizabeth Taylor, 1956. Henry Ford and wife Clara pictured in 1946 in the first car his company built back in 1896. Explosion of IRA car bomb in progress. Great Scotland Yard, Whitehall, London, England. 1973 March. Salvador Dali cutlery set design from 1957. A Foggy Night in San Francisco, 1953. Photo taken in a Sears department store on November 22, 1963. After a blizzard in Rawlins Pass, Colorado, 1906. British veteran of the Battle of Waterloo, wearing his campaign medal with his wife, circa 1850. Frank Slivers Oakley, the baseball clown, 1904. Boris Yeltsin visits a grocery store in Houston, Texas, with an official Soviet delegation, 1990. Passengers on board the Cunard White Star Liner, Queen Mary view the New York skyline as the ship docks in Manhattan at dawn, 1939. Ali meets actor Clint Walker during the filming of The Dirty Dozen, 1966. A Young Roosevelt, 1884. A fashionable young woman exiting a New York City streetcar in 1912. Tuberculosis patients from St. Thomas's Hospital rest in their beds in the open air by the River Thames, 1936. Queen Victoria, the Grandmother of Europe, 1894. Carl Akeley posing with the leopard he killed with his bare hands after it attacked him, 1896. Typist of the Future, circa 1970. Unpacking Mona Lisa at the end of World War II, 1945. The National Space Invaders Championship held by Atari in 1980. Winston Churchill as a cornet in the 4th Queen's Hussars Cavalry, 1895. He was 21 at the time. Cycle engineer riding the world's smallest bicycle through the city, London, August 1937. Nikola Tesla in his office, New York, 1916. Mother with her children on a 1912 Henderson sidecar. This photograph of Isambard Kingdom Brunel, considered one of the most prolific figures in engineering history, was taken 160 years ago. Facade of East 100th Street, New York, 1966. Central Park, 1933. Cary Grant circa 1938. Harlem, New York in 1943. Downtown Manhattan and East River, New York, 1943. Photo by Andreas Feininger. An FBI officer breaks a confiscated barrel of beer during the Prohibition, 1924. Two men talking in street with Vespa scooter and bicycle, Milan, 1948. Photo by Dmitry Kessel. Paris, 1904. Pike Place Market of Seattle, Washington, circa 1916. Mrs. Charlotte Collier with her daughter Marjorie, survivors of the RMS Titanic, 1912. At the edge of the Grand Canyon, circa 1914. Subway tunnel fire, West 55th Street and Broadway, New York City, January 1915. A barricade constructed by the Paris Commune in April 1871. Enjoying a game of cards, 1850. Amelia Earhart during studio photo shoot, circa 1928 to 1935. Detroit, 1917. Circa 1905. Young boy in Baltimore slum area, July 1938. '80s woman getting photographed for the first time. Abandoned boy holding a stuffed toy animal, London, 1945. U.S. Marines and a parrot in Nicaragua, 1927. A German soldier with a sawtooth bayonet stands in a dugout wearing his brow plate slid down to his neck, World War I. The first Olympic marathon and the first modern Olympic Games, Athens, 1896. U.S. Army military policeman toasting bread over molten lava from Vesuvius, 1944. Johnny Carson and James Brown, 1967. Condoms testing, 1935. On the top of Umbrella Rock on Lookout Mountain in Tennessee, early 1900s. Titanic orphans, brothers Michel and Edmund Navratil, 1912. The bell tower of the Sacré-Cœur Basilica, under construction on the Montmartre Hill in Paris. Homecoming prisoner, Vienna, Austria, 1946. Construction workers resting on a steel beam above Manhattan, 1932. Disneyland, 1961. Migrant farm worker with his wife and 10 children, 1936. Christian Bale in his teens, 1980s. The Thinker, Auguste Rodin in his studio in 1905. Eddie Rickenbacker of the 94th Aero Squadron, sitting in the board of a Newport 28. A giant snowman, Muir Glacier, Alaska, 1902. A less scruffy-looking, Harrison Ford, 1981. The Outsiders, 1983. Five megabyte IBM hard drive, 1956. Dr. Seuss drawing the Grinch, 1957. A kid's reaction when he meets Andre the Giant, 1970s. A man attempts to clear snow from telephone lines amidst a Siberian winter in 1960. Maori Battalion performing the Haka in Egypt, 1941. Soccer team of British soldiers with gas masks, World War I, somewhere in northern France, 1916. Clint Eastwood on his motorcycle, late 1960s. Moving a 7,600-ton apartment building to create a boulevard in Alba Iulia, Romania, 1987. Led Zeppelin in the 1970s. Breaker Boys employed by the Pennsylvania Coal Company, 1911. Goliath the elephant seal and his keeper at Vincennes Zoo, Paris, 1936. Bruce Lee with his master, Ip Man, circa 1960s. A grocery store at the time its Japanese-American owner is evicted. Oakland, California, 1942. The first photograph of the White House, 1846. Navajo youth Tom Torlino as he entered the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in 1882, and again 3 years later. Pennsylvania coffee shop, 1943. British archaeologist Howard Carter opens the door to the second of 4 gold shrines surrounding the sarcophagus of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, better known as King Tut. Valley of the Kings, Egypt, 1922. George Lucas surrounded by Star Wars props. Gregory Peck reading his famous book. Architect Minoru Yamasaki, right, posing with a model of the World Trade Center he designed, 1964. A portrait of Bob Ross, 1983. B-17s being escorted by P-47 fighters on their way to Germany, 1943. The Lincoln Memorial in 1917 versus present day. Children cross the river using pulleys on their way to school in the outskirts of Modena, Italy, 1959. An Iowan couple on their wedding day, 1899. $5 silver certificate, 1899. The only U.S. banknote with a Native American chief on it. A couple dancing on ice skates on Whitestone Pond, Hampstead, London, 1933. British soldiers enjoy a jaunt on a British Mark IV tank during World War I. Polishing the Gateway Arch 630 feet above the ground. St. Louis, Missouri, 1965. Elvis Presley and Messerschmitt Bubble Car, Memphis, 1956. American Garage, 1943. Steelworker on Saucony Mobile Building, 1955. Actress Lily Elsie posing with Snowman, England, 1909. The 3,245-year-old seal on Tutankhamun's tomb before it was broken, 1922. Coco Chanel and Salvador Dali, 1938. The 15-mile penny farthing race of the Harvard Bicycle Club, 1887. Heroin bust, New York, 1962. Ella Fitzgerald with Marilyn Monroe, 1956. Bicycle for Three, 1910. I thought I was pretty happening because I had good TV hair. George Clooney with his mullet in the 1980s. A Flight Simulator for Pilots, 1942. Archaeologists dine in the tomb of Pharaoh Ramses XI, 1923. A boy distributes newspapers bearing a headline about the sinking of the Titanic, 1912. Reading books from Mobile Library in Levallois-Perret, near Paris, circa 1960. A member of the Sioux tribe on horseback, 1905. Just divorced, 1930s. Paiute, Indian group near Cedar, Utah, 1872. Sir David Attenborough cuddles a bear cub named Benjamin, 1956. Crumbling buildings line a street and smoke rises in the background after the San Francisco earthquake, April 1906. John F. Kennedy Jr. salutes his father's casket as it is carried from St. Matthew's Cathedral, Washington, D.C., 1963. Louis Armstrong plays for his wife in front of the Sphinx by the pyramids in Giza, 1961. Designer Benjamin Bowden with the prototype of his Spacelander bicycle, London, UK, 1946. Princess Diana receives an E.T. doll from Drew Barrymore, Henry Thomas, Robert McNaughton, and Spielberg at the London E.T. premiere, 1982. Even in the 1870s, people were obsessed with cats. Princeton sophomores pose after a snowball fight, 1893. English Boy Scouts collecting funds for those affected by the Titanic disaster, 1912. A family thylacine or Tasmanian tigers in captivity, circa 1930. The last thylacine died in captivity in 1936. U.S. Senate in 1975. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed any fierce tribes. If you found this video eye-opening, be sure to check out the rest of our series for more thrilling historical insights. Don't forget to subscribe and share Past Not Past with someone who would love to learn more. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.